Morning you guys, it's Karen and I wanted to do a video to help you with any issues you may be having with your car on long car journeys and things that you can do to help them maybe not feel as sick if they have travel sickness, and also to maybe stop them barking, to maybe stop them being bored, to just generally make the journey more enjoyable for them. The first thing is that you can buy over-the-counter drugs for travel sickness for dogs. If you look into it, it's then of course up to you whether you want to go to your vet and pay the vet prices or whether you want to buy something over the counter that is for humans. You need to have a look into it and do whatever you're happy with. The second thing you can use, and you can use this in addition to any over-the-counter drugs, is a DAP spray or a DAP collar. It is something that mimics the doggy mother's hormones when they are, I think it's when they are breastfeeding. It's a very soothing hormone to dogs anyway, and it can be used on fireworks night, for dogs for separation anxiety, for all of these things. And you can get it either in a spray or as a collar. You can also get a plug-in, which I guess you could maybe figure out how to use in the car. I use a spray. I used a spray for Watson for separation anxiety, and I take a spray with me when I go to do grooming in somebody's home, when I go to teach them grooming, because it is something that can help with that. The only thing with a spray is you really need to do it about 10 to 15 minutes before they are in the car, because there is alcohol in it and you need to wait for the alcohol to dissipate. So you would have to go to the car, spray it, and then wait 15 minutes before they got in. So you need to be organised. A trainer told me that the spray was the best because it gives you a big shot of it, and especially at the beginning of a journey that would work very well. Whereas with the collar you are getting more of a continued effect, but you're not getting that one big blast, and then it's not something extra you have to put around their neck. So I would suggest a spray would probably be the best option. I will link to all the items I'm talking about, by the way. And the final option for specifically car sickness would obviously be to try to not give them too much food before they're going on a journey. I know that sounds like common sense, but some people just wouldn't think about it. I'd be that type of person that wouldn't make the connection. But also, if you are giving them food, try, if you can, to not give them anything too rich. Perhaps not their wet food, or not just something nice and bland if possible that isn't going to make them queasy. Something like Chappy, although it is a supermarket cheap food, is still recommended by vets for things like colitis and tummy upset. And so it may be, although that is a wet food, I think you can get kibble as well. It's the wet food they recommend. Something like Chappy might be good to try before a journey, because it is so bland. It's not got anything that's going to make them too sick. Then on to barking and bored dogs, basically, which kind of combines, if you've got a dog that is bored, he or she is likely to bark. And of course, the one big important thing that you can do is take them for not necessarily a long walk, but an interesting walk before you get in the car. A long walk would be best, of course, but if you can manage half an hour to an hour, wonderful. But even better if you can make that walk somewhere that's new, so they've got some new scents to smell, because that time afterwards will be spent thinking about everything that they've smelt. Or if you can incorporate some games into the walk, so some obedience training, something like that, that wears them out mentally. And so if you can combine wearing them out mentally and physically, then they're more likely to just be so tired they don't care about barking. Obviously make the car as comfortable as possible for them, and if they are anxious, a good thing to do is to take one of their beds with you and put that in the car, if you can at all do that safely, whether that means putting their bed into their crate or putting the bed on the back seat with them then harnessed in. There might be a way that you can figure out to be able to put their own bed in the car but still keep them safe. If they're not completely tired out, or you have a super long journey and they're asleep for the first 2 to 3 hours or something and then wake up, then you can play games with them in the car, and you can give them treats that aren't going to cause too much of a problem. A Kong is a great one, because a Kong, you can put something like peanut butter in it, which is high value. Probably not great for the dogs that are feeling sick. You'd probably want to think of something a bit less bland. I'm trying to think of something, maybe a light soft cheese, or some of the wet chappy dog food that I mentioned, but a Kong with peanut butter for a dog that is anxious or barking or bored is just wonderful. And you can just put a towel on the back seat or wherever they are and give them this Kong, and that will keep them occupied for a while. Or you could give them a ball that they could bat about, or something that they need to snuffle to get, you can get lots of toys where they need to work at getting the peanut butter. Or alternatively, you could sit with them and do some training and use the Kong with the peanut butter in as a a reward. So there's lots of tricks that you can do sitting down. You don't have to be up and moving around. So you can do speak and quiet training, and I will at some point be doing videos on how to teach a dog to speak and be quiet, but there is stuff out there if you really want to learn how to do this. Speak and quiet training, chin training, where you put your hand out and get them to put their head on your chin so that you can check their eyes and ears. And it will be great actually if they didn't know this trick before. So if you, for chin training, you would simply put your hand under their chin and say chin, and just wait for them to figure out, you're holding the Kong and wait for them to figure out that they need to put their head in your hand. As soon as they did it, you say good boy and give them a bit of peanut butter. That bit where they're figuring it out will tire them out so much, and it will take their mind off being anxious and, you know, barking. The game you can play with them is with kibble or little dry treats. Is you can put one in one hand and nothing in the other hand, and then with Watson I say smell, smell, which one, and then he'll either paw or nose which hand the treat is in. And again, that's getting them to use their nose, and that's something else that sort of tires them out and takes their attention away from being anxious or high energy. Teach them the hold it command, so just giving them a toy and getting them to hold it in their mouth. What was the other one I just thought of? Oh, you can teach them right and left, and it's really quite an easy one to do, because you start off by holding a treat to their left and saying left and giving them a treat left, yes good boy treat, and then you don't hold the treat to the left and say left, and then get them to figure it out, and they will eventually figure it out. And actually a lot of the things I train Watson, I think that they are things that could be useful, and the right and left thing has been very useful to me recently, because we were on a walk where he'd run down some steps ahead of myself and Kev, and we suddenly realized, it wasn't in sight, but we suddenly realized that if he turned right he was going to go almost immediately onto a road, and so we wanted him to turn left, so I was shouting left, 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 and he turned left, so it worked out to be really useful. I admit it may have been a fluke, because he only knows currently how to look left. We haven't yet gone turn left, but you know, it was good all the same. So plenty of things you can do, but of course that means you do have to sit next to them. I often sit in the back next to Watson, not because Watson doesn't actually have any issues in the car, but we suspect it may be because we incorporate all of these things into car journeys. There's also things you can give them to occupy them, such as pizzle sticks, or tripe sticks, things like that, things that, maybe not a tripe stick, but a pizzle or beef tendons, things like that, that are long lasting, that you don't need to supervise too much. You know, they're not going to be a choking hazard. Like a pizzle is not a choking hazard. It generally will last a long time for most dogs. The next thing may not occur to you, but it's to have a cool car. Remember that most dogs have a different heating system to us, and a car can get too warm. I have been in a lot of cars where people crank their heating up high and the dogs will get very, very hot. Now, of course, leave them water and stop and give them water and stop and give them lots of breaks. But it is better for them and their general well-being, especially if they're feeling sick, to have a cooler car and for you to just put an extra layer on. So turn the heating down a little bit if you can. The next couple of things I'm talking about are things you would put on the dog. And I have experienced these things as being very helpful in different situations. So the first thing I don't actually have, because Watson grew out of his, as in he's too big for it now, and doesn't need it anymore, but I used it again for separation anxiety, and he definitely got less worked up when he had his thundershirt on. And so I'll put a picture in of the thundershirt. And so this is something you can use on an anxious dog, but you don't actually have to buy the thundershirt. The thundershirt I think is about £30. I will link it for you in the description, but if you don't want to use that, I'll try and find a video that gives you the technique, and you can actually just buy bandages or thick material, but it needs to be particularly stretchy material, and you need to wrap it in a certain way. And it is that swaddling effect that where you give it to a baby and you wrap it like a burrito, it makes them feel safe. And the same thing occurs with dogs. If you wrap them up in that certain way, for some reason it just makes them calmer. So that's one possibility. And the other thing that I have used with extreme beneficial results is this. This is called a happy hoodie. It looks flipping hilarious when you see it on them. I'll try and put it on Watson later so you can see what it's like. And I'm sure you'll giggle putting it on. I did the first time I used it. But I'll tell you where I had good use of this. It wasn't even with my Watson. It was with one of my grooming clients who I just adore. And I was doing her groom, and her mum dropped her off and said she doesn't like the hairdryer, so you're going to have a problem blow drying her. And I said, okay, no problem. And I thought, right, this is exactly what this is used for in grooming. And I can't remember if I said this is called a happy hoodie. So I put this over her ears. Now the only thing is, obviously it means you can't dry her head, but that's okay. It meant I could get most of it done without worrying too much. I put this on, and honestly, she was doing this while I had the hairdryer on her. She absolutely loved it. Whereas without it, she was freaking out. I wish I'd have videoed it, because that would have been great to video how she was before and how she was after. I did send a little video of her doing this in, you know, with the hairdryer to her mum, and her mum, she was just like, oh my God, how have you managed that? You know, it is amazing. And the reason that is because a lot of what dogs are frightened of is what they can hear. You know, what they can hear and what they can smell. Their senses are different to ours, and the vibrations of a car moving and the speed, etc. And this will cut a lot of that out, because it pins their ears tight against their head. And the final thing, again, would require you being next to them, you know, sitting with them wherever they are, is to give them a massage or a scratch. In Watson's case, a massage doesn't do much for him, but if I kind of make it a scratch massage, if you like, it really calms him down very, very quickly, and it just makes him sleepy. Chewing and things like massage will make them sleepy, and it will make them calmer, and it's just something you can really do to help them kind of not think about other things that they may be worried about. Like I said, I am aware that a lot of these involve you sitting with the dog, and it may not be possible, but it may, and so it's worth me letting you know. Okay, that's everything. I hope that you found that useful. Please let me know how you get on, if you use any of these tips and tricks, if you like, and let us know if you've got anything else that you use that I haven't talked about, because it's always useful for other people. So thank you so much for watching today. I wish you the best of luck if you have a dog that's upset in the car, and I will speak to you again soon.